Hello, listeners. We're here with another episode of StarCast, and we're going to dive today into more of the fitness and yoga side of things. I am joined today by Jennifer Paul. Thanks for joining us, Jennifer.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to talk about one of my very favorite subjects.
Jennifer is a fitness studio consultant and a yoga studio owner, but she has not always been in the wellness world. So, Jennifer, I thought you'd begin by telling us, when you were in college, say, what did you think your career path would look like?
Oh gosh, that's such a great question. So I went to University of Florida. I'm from Florida originally. I live in Oregon now, so I'm on the other coast, but I was an advertising major and I thought I was going to be like Melanie Griffith. I was going to have like a business power suit on that
Working girl.
yeah, and have sneakers on and be running with my briefcase and doing all of that stuff. I really liked that combination of the art side and the business side. So that's kind of what brought me into advertising. I did not take any yoga classes. I had absolutely no idea I would ever own a yoga studio, and it was a super odd, strange route that I got to where I am now.
So what was it? Like did you start out working in advertising or marketing?
I did slightly. I kind of was when I graduated in 1991, and it was like this weird time where computers were starting to come in,
Uh-huh.
but I hadn't worked on a computer. So when I went to get my first job in advertising marketing, they were really looking for people who knew how to use computers. And so I went on my interview and I said, "Oh, absolutely. Oh yes, I definitely know how to use Quark Express or whatever the software was at the time."
Oh, Quark. Oh my gosh, I remember that.
Oh, yeah. I didn't even know what it was, right? So I got the job by just acting the part, and the fake it till you make it. And I went home. I was living at my parents' house at the time, and I went to the library and I checked out VHS tapes on how does Quark Express work.
Mhm.
And, for 2 weeks before I started my job,
Love it.
I just binged those videos. And I got there on my first day and I knew how to turn on the machine and I knew how to get a page up and type a few words. And they were over the moon excited because their expectations were so low, thank God.
It's funny how it's different from today. I mean, you'd have more resources at your fingertips. You wouldn't have to go to the library and get the tapes out, um, you were able to sort of to pretend a little bit, don't you think back then? You could kind of slide into something with maybe less of a defined skill set, shall we say, than we have now. I think it's a little harder now.
Yeah, I think so too. I have kids that are graduated from college and looking for those first jobs, and I feel like it's hard. But it really set me up kind of for that like gritty attitude of like, well, no one's going to come and fix it for me. Like, I better go figure out how to do this. I said I could do it. So I'm going to go figure it out. And I stayed in the advertising industry for just a little while. And then I ended up making a giant leap almost as far away from yoga as you can. And I went into like the financial world, helping companies do initial public offerings. And I was a sales rep for a company that did that in Atlanta. And so my job basically was entertaining people from investment bankers to accountants to lawyers to CFOs for companies, bringing them all together, taking them out for a big giant steak dinner, lots of whiskey, lots of schmoozing of all men around the table and me. And so that was, a strange route to go, but taught me so much.
I bet you learned a lot about finances in that role.
Yes, I definitely did. And I worked with founders, right? Because I was there during the IPO, kind of the first technology bubble with the internet. And so I was working with founders all the time and I would go meet with them in their quote unquote office, which was their basement, where they didn't even have any office furniture. They had like pulled in stuff from their patio and they had written a business plan and they had a good idea and they were able to explain it to people and raise all this money. And
Mhm.
I mean, good, bad, or ugly, most of those businesses are not around.
Mhm.
But it really taught me kind of like that scrappy business side where if you have a vision and you create a plan that makes sense and you're filling a void in the market, that supply and demand kind of idea of business is there.
Mhm. Filling a void in the market is key.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so I did that for a while, and then my husband is from Oregon. Eventually, we had a couple of kids, and we moved out here to Oregon. The company that I worked for in Atlanta did not have an office in Portland, So I was a stay-at-home mom for the first time, and that was interesting and exciting, but I knew I wanted to do something a little different. I really wanted to open up and was starting to do yoga, but I was still really not into it.
Mhm.
It was not like a passion of mine at all. But I really wanted to open up like a community-focused brick and mortar business. And so this was back in about 2011, 2012. I didn't know what I would sell there. I've never worked for a small business. I've never worked retail. I've never done any of that stuff. But I was starting to take yoga classes, and at that time there wasn't one in the city that I live in. We were having to drive pretty far to get to classes. So one day I was just on the mat taking class, and I thought, okay. I looked around. I'm like, this. How hard can it be to own a yoga studio? It's like a
I
box.
can do this.
Like, I don't have to teach. I'll do the business side, no problem. So then I was like, okay, I'm going to open a yoga studio. And I started on the business plan. And I didn't tell anyone because I'm not a yoga teacher. I, didn't have any background in this at all. But I just thought, oh, this is so fun. I love writing a business plan. I've written 1,000 business plans. And I think it's just really fun to think about it and do the research. And then finally, like, I kept thinking, like, okay, there'll be something that comes across that it's like, no, that was a really fun little thing that you played, yoga studio owner, but it's not going to work. And it just, like, one thing led to the next. And I found a space that was really going to work. And then all of a sudden I was sitting down signing the lease. And we opened in 2013, so 11 years ago. And, I've been on that roller coaster ever since.
Did you ever get yoga teacher training?
I did. And it was funny because I put this advisory group together as I was kind of vetting the idea. And owners that I knew in other places, 100% of them said, you cannot own a yoga studio without being a yoga teacher.
Oh, I don't know if that's true.
I kept saying, that's so weird. Like,
You need to be a business. You need to understand business. I mean, I guess it helps if you can jump in and teach a class, but I don't think it's a requirement.
totally. And I would actually say you know, a lot of the clients that I work with and people I see out there who were yoga students, became yoga teachers, loved it so much that they wanted to own a studio, but didn't have any of the business side of it and didn't really want to do the business side. They just wanted to teach more and own their own studio. That's a lot more challenging. We did our first teacher training 2 years after we opened. So for the first 2 years, I just hired people, which worked great. Teachers did their job. I handled all the business side. And it was a really nice partnership. 2 years in, we did do a teacher training and I became certified. So now I teach one class a week. So I can jump in and sub wherever needed. So
So your business is called Twist Yoga, which I think is fun. What inspired that name other than the obvious contortions of a yoga practice?
yeah, totally. It has a lot of layers to it. I really wanted kind of like a twist on the traditional studio. What I was finding at that time, we had one corporate chain in the area, and all the rest were very, very independent and very kind of like loosey goosey ish kind of places where the teachers were fabulous, the experience was fabulous, but they weren't. I didn't really feel like they had like a lot of vision in the planning of the studio. So I kind of wanted like a little bit of a twist on your expectations of what you find in a yoga
Mhm.
studio. As I said, I really just wanted to create a place where people could go and connect with each other. I had no idea what I would sell there, but evidently I was selling yoga. But I really wanted it to be like a community space where people could come meet each other, connect with themselves, and just yoga happens to be the vehicle to do that.
So here you are, you've never owned a yoga studio, you've never even done yoga much, and you decide to open a studio. How did the word get around about what you were doing?
Yeah. So I'm just south of Portland, Oregon, like maybe 20 minutes south, but we're in our own little city here. And I just thought, oh, like literally when I made my business plan, I really didn't know anything about what I was doing. For the first year, I put like $0 in marketing because I thought, oh, I'll just put a sign out and everyone will know, like
I
I
love
would
it.
know like, yoga studio opens. Like I know every business that opens. I was reading the paper at the time and talking to friends and you knew when something opened. So I just thought, oh my gosh, how easy. I'll put a sign out there and people will be lining up, you know?
Just because it opened means we should go.
Totally.
If only it was that simple.
Well, I know. Wouldn't that be nice? I just started telling people, basically, I had to kind of get over that hump of before we opened, like we signed the lease, I think in September, and we had to do a full build out because it had been well, it's so funny because it's in kind of an older commercial building that's been there forever. So people who grew up here know this building. And the history of our space was first, it was a VHS movie, rental place called Lakeside Video. And it was that for like 20 years. And then it was Lakeside Tan, and it was a tanning studio for a long time. So it's so funny, like, to think about, those were like big businesses of the day, or tanning beds. And then sat empty for a little while. So then we got it from the former location of this tanning salon. And so we kind of had to like strip it all out and build from scratch, which was fine. So during the 2 months of the build out was when I really started, fueling the marketing, telling everyone I knew, had an article in the paper, had lots of signage. We had brown paper on the windows, but lots of signage of coming soon. I had the website ready. I pre-sold 2-year founding memberships so that I had some cash in the bank that the minute that we opened, which was great. Those were mostly sold to people that I knew who trusted me and were like, okay, we trust that you're going to do this, so we're going to give you some money for this. So yeah, so it was really a lot of word of mouth. Um, I had kids in school, so I had the connection of the community in that way. I was on our school foundation board of directors for a while. And so I just had a lot of community connection. So it was really just word of mouth for the most part.
How many classes a week do you think you had, or a day, when you first opened?
I think we started with about 12 classes a week.
And
I
how
wanted to
many?
have enough that people felt like it was worthwhile to get a membership,
Mm,
but I wanted the classes to also feel full. And, I also had to convince teachers to work for me
mhm,
because I
sure.
wasn't in that industry. So I put an ad in Craigslist. I started with meeting people. I was asking my friends, like, okay, who's the best teachers that you know? And so I really had to also lean on teachers trusting to come work at a new studio too.
Mhm. How did you decide what classes to offer? I mean, given that whatever that was 13 years ago, it was pretty straightforward. Yoga was more consistently one type of yoga. When did you start to broaden what you offered?
Yeah, it's such a good question. And it's so important because that whole saying of if you try to appeal to everyone, you don't appeal to anyone. It's so hard in yoga because we all feel like, well, anyone can do yoga and any style of yoga is good. And yoga is for everyone and all that kind of idea. But if you don't really know who your quintessential client is, it's hard to create a schedule that works for them. It's hard to hire the right teachers that work for them because there's lots of parts to it, right? Like we really catered, and my little community is really centered around our schools and our public school system. So a lot of people move to this area for the schools.
Mm,
And so I first looked at, as far as like the timing of the scheduling, I looked at when our elementary school started, junior high,
mhm.
all those, and kind of made the classes around that so that you could drop off and still get to class. Or you could get home from working downtown and still get to class before you get home for dinner type thing. So looking at your community for timing. And then you really have to just decide what type of people am I serving and what pain points are they looking to fulfill? Are they really looking for more spiritual type classes? Are they looking for hot classes where it's a workout? Are they looking for mobility because it's an older population? Did they just have kids and they're working to get core back? Or, you just being focused on that type of stuff, I think is really important, doing that work before you just throw a bunch of things out there and hope it works for as many people as possible.
So you got the studio open, 2 years in, teacher training, you're trained. I mean, when did it start to evolve beyond that? When you started to feel like you had advice to give to others?
Yeah, that's such a good question. So maybe the second year in business, I was super, super detailed on my expenses. We were profitable the first year and we've been profitable every year.
Amazing.
was super careful on where I spent money. So in my point of view, it was self-funded as well. So I needed to make this work.
Uh-huh.
Um, Everything that I spent money on needed to bring me money back. So for instance, when I was putting in our front desk, I could have had our builder build a front desk, but instead I had this like side table at my house. I cut the leg shorter. I brought it in free, right? I dumped crap out of bins in my basement that my kids had toys in, and that's what we used to put props in. So I wanted to stay in my budget where I wanted to spend money on really good floors, on a really good HVAC. I wanted nice mirrors. I wanted nice bathrooms, nice enough. But I was really, really careful. And I didn't hire I didn't hire front desk staff, anyone to help with advertising, none of that. Cleaning, I did everything at the beginning. Which really set it up so that second year I could identify, okay, what what do I like doing? What am I good at doing? And where do I need to like fill in those holes? So before I even hired staff or front desk or managers in any way, I hired a consultant myself. So from year 2 until about last year, I've had about 6 different consultants
Mhm.
over the years, from non-yoga consultants to specific yoga industry consultants. And they really helped me determine, okay, here are the places that I want to be spending my time in my quote unquote zone of genius where I enjoy being and I'm good at it. And then the things that I don't necessarily love doing, how do I fill in those holes and how do we budget so I can? So
Mhm.
like, for instance, like start talking about intro offers here. A lot of things to consider is who's going to be, doing the selling at your business. And I'm working with a client now in Atlanta, and has a similar situation that I have when I first started. And she still hasn't hired anyone at the front desk. And so we've been working through this of, okay, what will that look like if we hire someone and if we pay them this much, how much do we need to get in return to make it worthwhile?
Mhm. Well, that's part.
Some planning for that, and it's super scary. The first time I hired someone, I was like, "Oh my gosh, like, here it goes," and it's like you're spending some money because you've hired someone, but if you've done it correctly and you've planned, then what you're spending on them flatlines, and you start to see that increase in the conversion rates.
Well, I love that you utilized consultants early on because being one myself, it's great to hear that there is a financial return to that. Sometimes people think they have the idea, they don't have the funds. It is expensive, I grant you that. But I think when you look at the arc of a project and the money you invest and the risks that you take, mitigating that risk with outside advice, it can be a pretty good strategy and can earn that money back. So, do you think, Jennifer, because you went into this with some business knowledge and financing knowledge, that helped you sort of understand what you needed to accomplish in a short time?
So, I think that definitely helped me. I don't think you cannot make it work if you have no business background, but you really have to invest in yourself and in that learning, because if you don't look at it as a business, no matter how much you love your modality and you want to be able to offer it to people because it's going to change lives, if it's not a healthy business and the energy exchange, the money doesn't feel right, you're going to close and then you're not going to be able to offer it to people. So it's really a lot of times it's our relationship that we have with money as well, and our value of how much things should cost and what's fair. I think reconciling that first before you even start to think about becoming an owner is really important.
That's a great point that you make. Yeah, and on the spa side, we often work with people who worked in the spa and they want to do their own and they think they can do it better, and maybe they can. But what they think they can do better tends to be how it looks or, what the menu looks like. And they don't have a really firm grasp on the financial aspects of it that, of course, are crucial to success. And, let's face it, most people don't want to get into the math. I mean, that's not fun for many of us. It's much more fun to think about what carpet you'll choose and what lockers you'll bring in, but it all has to make money at the end of the day.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. And you have to like when I'm working with a new client, if they're struggling on that money relationship side, you have to kind of understand like why they're struggling with it. Maybe maybe they've always struggled with a relationship with money. Maybe they don't feel like they deserve to make money. Maybe they're embarrassed to say when they're making money. I mean, there's so many parts to it. But to help them understand that the more profit you're making that reach whatever your profit goals are. Maybe your goal is just that you want to pay yourself and your staff what you determine is a healthy living wage and that's all you need, then that's great. Then that's how you create your budget. Maybe your budget is that you want to be able to be saving enough to open a second location. You have to just kind of like dive into that side of it and plan around it because if you don't plan for it, the finances don't just happen on their own, you
Mhm.
know?
No.
I've worked through like Profit First is a great book for people to read
Mhm.
that I think really helps them maybe flip that traditional like accounting P&L spreadsheet and it lets you prioritize the profit versus the revenue. A lot of times people get caught up on how much revenue they're making, how much revenue they're making. It doesn't matter. I mean, I don't care. I would rather have a $300,000 business that makes 100,000 in profit than $1 million business that makes 10,000 in profit.
Exactly. Yes, it's not about the revenue. So that Profit First book is available on Amazon and anywhere, and it is a very valuable resource. So, at what point after well, let's see, this is mid 2015, 16, you're motoring along. Were you starting to go into consulting at that point? Were you teaching still? Were you very involved with the studio?
Yeah, I was still teaching. We had gotten to a point where I joined an entrepreneur organization called Entrepreneur Organization or EO. It's a international organization and they have an accelerator program. So it's for businesses who have revenues of 1 million or less.
Hmm.
And their goal is within 2 years of joining this program and they use a book called Scaling Up, which is kind of really teaches you how to scale a business. That's kind of what their methodology is. So I joined that and I got into it and I got really, really motivated to see how big I could grow this business.
Uh-huh.
And then what I got to understand about a year and a half in was if I really wanted to scale, I was going to need to open several more locations.
Right.
And so some people in my cohort had different types of businesses and some were brick and mortar, some were different service businesses. And basically, once they started to open multiple locations, they really became like a manager, HR, you were really dealing with SOPs, onboarding, offboarding, a lot of financial stuff, a lot of accounting stuff, and you were getting further and further away from what you actually sold at your business.
Hmm.
And they were spending their day driving from this location to that location and then that one didn't show. Now they have to get a new manager for that. And I just was like, I don't want to do that. Like
Hmm.
at my stage in life, my ego did not need that. And so I was trying to decide, okay, how could I scale without multiple locations? So in 2016, we opened up a virtual studio.
Mm. Wow. That was prescient of you.
Just had no idea how smart
Mhm.
that was going to be. And at first people were like, wait, what? Like people aren't going to take from home and recorded classes. And it kind of started out filling a void where we had students who were moving away and they're like, oh, we love the teachers. Like, how can we continue practicing with you? So we started that. It's called Twist Yoga Anytime. I used a company called Namastream, which is now called Hey Marvelous. I love the founders of the company. It's women owned and founded. They're from Canada. And we just started filming twice a week. I mean, twice a month. We built a little studio in my basement, once again, saving money, and hired a videographer. And well, at first I did the video, of course, not knowing what the hell I'm doing with the whole camera and all the
Uh-huh.
stuff, but I learned. And then eventually we hired someone and we would be filming classes and we didn't have anything hybrid at the time, but we just filmed classes. We put them up there and we sold that. It's separate from our studio offering. So it's a monthly subscription that you can subscribe to, $35 a month, or it is a free benefit to our highest level of membership.
Smart. Mhm.
So that worked out great. So we started doing that and also started doing retreats at the same time. So we've done about, I don't know, 30 retreats or 40 retreats. And so really just trying to grow all these different kind of tentacles of of that one location building and seeing, all these different ways that we can work with
Well,
workshops and retreats and teacher trainings. We've done 19 teacher trainings. We do 2 of those a year. So kind of doing everything you can possibly do for one location.
I love that approach because you're right. The second location is a whole different complication, and it doesn't make double the money, and it's definitely more than double the trouble. So I love that you said, how can I get the most out of this one? So at this point, looking back, which of those extra streams, the teacher training, the retreats, the online, has been the best place to put your energy and investment?
It really depends on why you're doing those. I just did a podcast and an article all about teacher training because I think a lot of times what happens with teacher trainings is, and the same thing with retreats, is you see other people doing it and you're like, oh, I want to do that. That looks
Hmm.
like a great way. Like people are paying $3,200 to do a retreat or to do teacher training. Like I want all that money. So for us, the teacher training happened really, really naturally. We had a teacher who she actually taught our very first class on our very first day. She came to me and said, I've taken 5 200 hours and 2 500 hours, and I would like to write a manual and do my own and kind of take the things that I've learned from all the different ones, and we can work together and start hosting a retreat, hosting teacher training. And since I wasn't a teacher and there weren't at that time that many teacher trainings, there also weren't online teacher trainings like there are
Mm.
now, that you
Hmm.
can be a certified, teacher for like $100 or whatever it is now. It felt very natural at the time. I have so much pride in our teacher training. We have 8 teachers that teach in it. So we have teachers that are the best of the best in their field. We have the best meditation teacher. We have the best yoga and philosophy teacher. Our teacher training is the only one that she teaches in. She's the only person getting a PhD in that. So we really cultivate it to be something that I feel like is is as good as it can possibly be with the tools that we have.
Hmm.
It's been profitable. It's been great. We keep it small though, the way that we build our expenses and the budget around, we keep 15 or less people in our teacher training,
Hmm.
which you'll see a lot of times people will have, 40 people in a teacher training or however. And I just feel very icky about that. I don't think that you can really give people what they need with that many people. So I think the teacher training for us, but it's a lot of work. You don't
Mm.
just say, I'm going to do a teacher training. People don't just run in signing up. And sometimes they do. Like there's a lot of honestly, like really crappy teacher trainings out
Mm.
there. There's a lot that just are even the Yoga Alliance certified ones, because Yoga Alliance comes, they say, okay, here's what you need to teach. Send us your $500 to get certified.
Mm.
And, good luck. I hope you do everything you say you're going to do. You really don't. Unfortunately,
It's not really a commitment
no,
to quality.
it's not really. And I would say the same thing. I love doing retreats, but retreats are a ton of work if you do it in the way that we do it, where we have, we probably have a 6-month lead up where we're having meetings, we're talking with people, we're sending them gifts. Maybe we all read a book,
Mm.
we all watch a show, something like that. So that and then when you go to the retreat, it's not like I show up, I teach a class, I disappear for the day, I come back, I teach the evening class, and I
Mm.
disappear. So retreats are the other thing that I always tell people, like, don't offer retreats because you want to take a trip. It's not a
Uh-huh.
trip for you. It's not a
It's
vacation.
it's not it's a work. It's just work in a harder environment probably to do it.
Yeah.
How many people go on your typical retreat?
So we've had between 12 and gosh, we did one that we had about 55 people at.
Wow.
2 teachers, always have 2 teachers. So I co-host with someone else, which is the same way I do teacher training. So since I have so many different things going on, I really don't just do something on my own. I find that person that matches, again, those parts that I need to match with what I do. I find somebody else who matches with me that does things that they're really good at for
Mhm.
retreats and teacher training.
And so you have them how many times a year, Jennifer?
We typically do 2 retreats a year.
Uh-huh. Spring and fall sort of thing?
And we've been doing all international the last few years, mostly because the domestic ones are so expensive.
Uh,
It's about 2 to 3 times the amount to host in the US as it is to like in Mexico, or we have one in Italy coming up in May, or Costa Rica. It's just if most of our people wanna have their own room and their own bathroom, or a
mm,
shared room with their own friends and their own bathroom. So, if you have ones where people don't mind having a bathroom down the hall, or more kind of glamping type things,
mhm,
or if you wanna do the cooking, like, I'm not doing any of that stuff. Like, I want to go to a retreat center that has it all dialed in. I
mhm.
don't need to go and cook for people too.
So when you have a retreat, are you all meeting at the airport together, or do they get themselves to the property and you take over from there?
Typically, we meet, it depends. We always have people coming from all different states. So, we meet at the airport of the location, and then we have transportation set.
Mhm,
So, it's like, okay, for this one that's coming up, we meet at the Rome airport. You need to get in by 1:30 PM or something like
mhm,
that, which it works for most international flights that way. Like for our Mexico ones, you have to arrive by 2:30 or something like that. So if people
mhm.
arrive earlier, they kind of hang out together, or on their own. They know exactly where to meet, and then transportation is set from there.
And then are you planning the entire time 24/7 that they're there, or do you just say, "We're gonna have a few yoga classes," and you guys fill in between?
Totally. I like a combination of that. I think it's really important for people to have downtime and rest time on retreats. At least that's like my own
Mhm,
preference, I would say. So it's a loosey goosey schedule, and it's also a firm schedule. So
mm,
we want them to know that we've created this container where we're taking care of them, but they also have time to say yes or no to anything that they want. So, like, you wake up, there's a little bit of breakfast, classes at 8 or 9 or whatever we decide to have class. And then after that is like your bigger breakfast. And then basically you have kind of the day until an afternoon practice.
mhm,
On 50% of the days, we like to offer an alternate excursion. Some of them are included, some aren't. So maybe it's
mhm,
a hike, or it's a cold plunge, or it's an aerial class. In Italy, we're doing pasta making and a wine tour and different
mm,
things like that. So we really try to include a lot of culture. It's important for me to really honor wherever we are doing the retreat, and make sure that we're coming and learning about that culture, being respectful of the culture, and kind of like immersing ourselves in that culture. So there is the
mhm.
yoga side of it, but then there's also the culture side. And people can say yes or no to whatever they want.
So, as a business owner, um, do you think it's important to have all of these different aspects to be successful owning a studio? The retreats, the teacher training? No?
Yeah. I don't think so. I think that if you put, like, I sometimes imagine, okay, if I put all of my focus, like all of my eggs in just selling memberships and having really good classes and really good teachers and really good customer service, like, would that be successful? I 100% think it would be successful.
Mhm,
I don't think you have to do any of those things. That's why I said, like, really start with that. Why would you want to do a teacher training? Why would you want to do retreats? If your why doesn't really align, then I don't think you need to do them.
mhm.
I think
Alright.
you can definitely have an extremely successful business. If 80% of your classes are full 80% of the time, you're going to have a successful business without having to lean on those other revenue categories.
Well, to your earlier point, it's all in the numbers, right? How you set it up and what you charge and what you need your occupancy to be. So I notice on your menu, you have some different classes like yoga for strength and mobility or restorative yoga. What's the interest been from the public in exploring some different types of yoga?
Well, one of our core values at my studio is always be the student. And I think that it's important to stay with that student mindset where we're always learning, we're always exploring, we're always like fresh in our minds. And I think that, people come to yoga for many different reasons. So, if they're coming because they have a stressful life and they want some stress relief, then I think it's very important for people to understand that the restorative yoga offering really is for your nervous system to help move you into that parasympathetic, that rest and digest that we all really, really need to find balance in our life and like move out of that just chronic stress situation that we tend to be in. And then there's people that come that say, I'm me personally, I'm postmenopausal and I'm working to keep my strength up and keep my, muscles working really hard and my bones strong. So some people come for that. And so we want to have opportunity for people to come and really work on that side of things too. I mean,
Mhm.
that's a whole different ballgame than it is to have, there is some stress relief, of course, when you're building muscle, but it just kind of hits different categories for people. So part of our intake and our onboarding of new people is really understanding why they've come to yoga. Sometimes they don't know. They just say, "Oh, my doctor said I should do yoga," or "My friend does yoga," or something like that. But once you really understand their why, then suggesting classes that fit with their why will be so much more successful than somebody who comes in and they're doing CrossFit or Orange Theory 3 times a week and they want to come in and stretch or whatever they say they want to come in for. So you want to match it so that it does help them reach their own goals in a more appropriate way.
I'd like to hear a little bit, Jennifer, about your journey on the mat because you came into this sort of backwards, right? I mean, you weren't the yogi first. You opened the studio and then became the teacher. And now what is your relationship with your own personal yoga practice?
That's such a good question. What I love about yoga is that the more you learn about it, the more you realize you don't know.
Mm.
Like you come in and it's so funny to see this trajectory. So I first came in where I started doing hot yoga and Bikram yoga because I had done a couple yoga classes before and I have like a tin man body. I am like the tightest person you will
Oh.
ever meet. I am so far from bendy. And I did like a bendy yoga class and I thought, oh my God, I suck at this. I'm never going to do yoga. Yoga is stupid. You sit there and you breathe and you put your body in these weird shapes that I can't do. So I don't want to do it. And then I found like the Bikram style where I was like, oh my God, I think I'm going to throw up halfway through this class.
When you get to camel, that was always the point for me. Get to camel, uh-oh.
Haha. And I thought, oh, I like this. Like this seems really hard. I can do this. This is like powerful. This must be what yoga is. And then luckily, I started finding the next thing was like a heated vinyasa. And so then I'm like, okay, so it's still hot. It's still hard. I still feel like I might throw up, but I see them like moving into these different shapes. And some of them I was starting to understand. Some of them I still couldn't do. Most of them I still can't do. And so then I started understanding all these different types of yoga. And oh, you don't have to be sweating hot. You don't have to be feeling like you're going to throw
Mhm.
up. The idea was like, okay, maybe I'm finally doing something for my body and my mind that I could do the rest of my life.
Mm.
And so for me personally, I practice on the mat so that when I'm off the mat, I can be stronger, I can move with ease, I can be happier, I can be, more present. So my practice on the mat is fully in preparation for the rest of my life off the mat.
I 100% agree. I enjoy the practice itself, but it's more for how you feel later than it is for the doing of it. It's the later part, the aspect. As you said, flexibility, strength, but for me, it's been the mental, the ability to really bring your focus down to the moment and the mat and your breath and not think about the other things. That has been really transformative. So, in closing, I'd like to hear you, Jennifer, as the business owner. Is there anything you would have done differently as you look back on your successful journey?
I love that question. I just got a proposal this morning from MindBody to write a blog post about that. Like things I wish I would have known before I opened up a
Hmm.
studio. So I've been thinking about it all morning. I feel kind of two ways about this. I'm glad I didn't know all the things I needed to know to open up a yoga studio because it might have paralyzed me.
Well, you would have done it.
I probably wouldn't. And if I was like, oh my gosh, like all those parts and the pandemic aside, just all the different parts that you need to learn. And I didn't have those tools at the time. I would say, when I'm working with people, I've worked with a lot of clients who are, working through their business plan, or most don't want to write a business plan because let's just admit, like nowadays, people act like business plans are dumb. I do not believe that. I make everyone write a business plan. I think it's very important. But I think that getting really focused on your why do you think you want to open this business? And being really honest about it. And I'm 100% fine. If your why is you want to make money, awesome. That's great.
Mhm,
That's
mhm.
nothing wrong with that why. I'm a big fan of making money. So I think getting really clear, like, are you filling a void in your community? Are you, really passionate about learning to become a better leader? Or do you, like really narrowing down on your why of why you want to do this? I don't know if I was super clear. I mean, my basic why was I wanted to create a space where people could come and they could make connection. So, that was pretty loose why, but everything kind of went around that. Our tagline is connection fuels happiness.
Mhm.
And so I think just that, like really getting clear on your why, because your why will inform your business plan. And then your business plan will completely inform the next steps that you take.
Well, that's great, great advice from a powerhouse of yoga knowledge. We appreciate you joining us for that. Jennifer Paul, PAHL. And your site is twist-yoga.com. Where would a listener find you as a consultant? Is it available through your studio website?
No, it's its own little entity and it's JC Paul Consulting. So it's JCPAHL consulting.com.
Okay, great. Great to know. Well, thanks again for joining us and sharing your knowledge on your yoga journey. And I think I want to sign up for that retreat in May. That sounds pretty good, to Italy.
Oh, you should come. We have one room left. It's got your name on it. It's halfway in between Rome and Florence, and it's where we wanted to pick a place where yoga teachers went for their retreats.
Mm,
So it's in the Umbria district. It's an area that not a lot of Americans go to, which is perfect.
I love that. My family's from Umbria. So, yeah, definitely that's going to be great. Thanks again for joining us, Jennifer.
Thank you so much, Lisa. Have a great day.
You too.